your martial arts movie podcast.
I threw that shit before I walked in the room.
Featuring drunken Thai boxer Will.
Too bad you will die.
The also drunken wrestler Mark.
I said I don't want trouble.
And drunken karate master Zero.
You've lost your balls.
And now,
Tall. I know Kung Fu.
You know, baby.
Fists of Fail.
I think our show is just slowly turning into the video game movie podcast. Because this will be the third video game movie we've done in a row. That means next week we have to do the Double Dragon.
Oh boy.
Right?
It wouldn't technically go along the lines of the new theme for May, hint, hint. But
yeah. Well, this movie doesn't fit our theme for this month either.
that is true. We are breaking theme because we're talking about Mortal Kombat. Yay.
Yay. Oh, is it deja vu again? Because didn't we just cover the best Mortal Kombat movie just 2 weeks ago?
We did, but I think there may be another contender for the best Mortal Kombat because I found out Ghana did their own version of Mortal Kombat, and I really want to watch that.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh man, I wonder if Ed Boon had any. He has any royalties from that movie? That movie.
He did a tweet about it, mentioning it. So
that's
kind
awesome.
of fun. Yeah.
Hey, but we are breaking theme for this month, for this episode, because we're covering a new movie. Whoa, I guess COVID-19's finally all past us, right? We can start talking about new movies again. We haven't done that in forever.
That is very true.
But I mean, this is a new release, and we might have to be a little bit cautious because since it's a new movie, we'll try to avoid spoilers.
I don't know if we can. I think it's going to be hard.
Well, I was going to say, we'll avoid spoilers up front, and then we'll get to a certain point where we have to break into it. Like get into the actual action and maybe dive into the plot a little bit more outside of the general synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll give you a warning when we get there. But yeah, new movie. Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Well,
we haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, man, what was the last film we spoke about that we actually both saw in the theaters? Was it Enter the Fat Dragon?
Oh, what? Oh God, I forgot that we watched that direct in theaters.
You might have forgot because we were day drinking and we ended the night on Enter the Fat Dragon.
That's right. This has suddenly turned into a anecdote about that, but I think we met up at like noon, and our movie wasn't until like 10 p.m. or something like that.
Yes, that is correct.
So we're just and believe me, even if we were sober, we wouldn't have enjoyed that. But that felt like ages ago, and now we're talking about the new Mortal Kombat movie, which has been in release hell for a bit because they were just waiting on COVID to just kind of blow by, and then you can finally release it. So this has just been shelved for a while, and I'm kind of glad that it's finally released. And it's okay. The movie's okay.
Yeah. I would. That might be my very short review of the film as well.
It's like this whole series has been on hold since the last movie. It's been handed off a couple times. They were thinking about having some reprisals from the
original films
from Michael Jai. Well, the original films, but also they were thinking about maybe we'll have the Michael Jai White and playing their the roles here in this movie, when they did that web series 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we have all these considerations, and then it went through all this development hell, and finally this movie has finally come out and has a completely different approach, different director in hand. Simon McQuaid.
I don't know.
McQuaid. Doesn't matter. It's shifted hands so many times, and we have a completely different cast, and the movie's just okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because this has a legacy behind it. The first film has the unfortunateness of being kind of iconic because it's a 90s movie, but it's actually one of the better video game adaptation films. So it's big shoes to fill. It's difficult to talk about this film or even watch the film without kind of thinking about that original if you're a fan of it.
Yeah, that's true. There's only one slight callback that you'd get from the original movie that's referenced in this movie. It's the theme, I suppose. But that's like a very light hit while you're watching the movie, right? Like while you're watching the bulk of the movie, like you kind of hear the original Mortal Kombat score. Which, by the way, I gotta admit, it's weird when I'm watching a Mortal Kombat movie and there's no one screaming at me Mortal Kombat to start off the film. But yeah, if it weren't for the fact that they had that, you could hear like the light orchestral score, like in this movie, and then there's that god awful end credit remix, which you can't even tell that's the Mortal Kombat theme unless you're really paying attention.
I can tell. And I didn't like it, but that's fine. I understand they're going to do their own thing with it. I would have preferred if they just made new music, but they did what they did, so, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. But hey, this movie on its own merits, it doesn't need to reference the first movie or even Annihilation, which is obviously the masterpiece of the series.
Agreed.
Yeah. I think that on its own, it actually stands on its own 2 feet, which I think is a testament to the movie and to the filmmaking and the quality of the end product. Because I think watching this movie, I obviously come at it from so many different angles, right? There's a martial arts freak in me. There's there's the video game fan in me. And then there's the average moviegoer in me, and I had to look at it from all different angles. And being a moviegoer, I had to separate myself from being a Mortal Kombat fan, and I thought, I think this makes sense. I think it does. But although it is really hard at times because it starts to blur the line, and certain movie events happen, you're like, I think you'd only understand that if you understand the story of the games. But for the most part, I don't think that's a problem, right?
Yeah, I was getting a little worried because minus the opening scene with Scorpion and Sub-Zero, we get a kind of title crawl explaining the events of the film or the overall story of the film. And I'm always worried when you have title crawls because sometimes it's almost like the people who are watching the film aren't going to get it, so they just have to literally spell it out for us. Or it's like Star Wars where none of this is actually irrelevant. We're just giving this fancy title crawl and, what's the point?
Yeah. Well, I actually kind of didn't... I don't want to say I didn't pay attention, but like the title crawl in the very beginning explaining, the gist of the film. It kind of glazed over my eyes, kind of glazed over it, but I still understood the bulk of the movie. In fact, I understood the whole movie. But it does add a little bit of context for those who might not understand, like, oh, what is Earthrealm? What is Outworld? What is this tournament? Why are people killing each other immediately in this movie? I don't understand it. But I feel like the movie spells it out just well enough for you to understand. It is not Mortal Kombat Annihilation. All right, it is not. There's not like you don't have to be a video game fan or like the Mortal Kombat fan to understand this movie. And I guess that kind of leads us to the story. Zero, what is the story?
Oh, God. So, jeez.
I'm glad I'm not doing it.
Fuck. So apparently there's a tournament between Earthrealm and Outworld. Outworld has won 9 tournaments, and if they win a 10th tournament, they get to invade Earth. And we're on the 10th tournament, and now both sides are gathering fighters. That's like the very, very, very basic gist of the story. So basically, the film is about us meeting said fighters and learning the power of friendship along the way. I don't know. It's
Zero, all you have to do is say, hey, did you watch the first Mortal Kombat? It's that story.
Well, not everybody did, nor does everyone want to, which would be weird. But yeah. It's a ensemble piece. There are multiple characters we are following, and it's the interesting thing I'll say about this film is everybody knows Mortal Kombat is technically a tournament if you're a fan of the game or the movies or whatnot. And this movie actually goes against those expectations, and there is actually no tournament.
Yeah, I think what they went for in this movie they ditched the traditional formal idea of what a tournament setting is, right? They're not in a ring. They're not like there's no one officiating these fights. It's just literally they're basically like backroom brawls and like no matter where you go, it's like as long as someone dies at the end, that's how you determine who wins or not.
So basically, the bad guys of Outworld are led by the sorcerer Shang Tsung, and
Chin Han always does a great job in every movie that I see him in. But yeah.
and apparently he doesn't fight fair, which is one of the reasons why they've won 9 tournaments in a row. And he just wants to get to the point and beat the Earth Realm, so they are pretty much cheating, and they are hunting the heroes of the story so that I guess when the tournament does happen, they just have no fighters.
I guess so. I mean, yeah, like you said, they're not completely being unfair. Isn't that the exact plot for one of the, like the early 3D Mortal Kombat games? Deception or I don't know.
After 4, it kind of gets really really muddy for me with the video game storylines anyway.
Yeah, I'm not an aficionado on that either. But hey, we are coming at this first and foremost as moviegoers, and I think that you don't have to have the context of all that, right, to understand this movie, and that's a good thing, right? I think that eschewing the whole tournament setting is actually a benefit for the movie. It is like with the whole context or like the whole backdrop that yes, the bad guys are cheating. They're just they're going against the rules, but the general guidelines of which Earth Realm warriors will have to defeat the Outworld warriors, I guess, would determine the fate otherwise. I think it's like getting rid of the tournament, getting rid of the rings or whatever. I think that actually adds a lot of intensity, a lot of tension in the movie. It's like, oh, at any point, something bad's going to happen. You have to wait for the next fight. And like, okay, well, people are just going to be waiting, standing around until they have to step into a ring. And here it's like, oh, well, these bad guys can just appear at any time and, something bad can happen. So I actually kind of like that. Like, I felt like that's always adding like a seriousness, like direness to the film.
Yeah, I can see that. I can understand what they were doing, but for me, I wasn't getting those feelings, so to say. Yeah, okay. I got it, but I never. I don't know. Like I have lots of problems with this movie, and I don't know how to verbalize all of them. But I get the direness. I see what they were doing, but it wasn't coming across to me like that. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it yet. So yeah, the movie is actually still a little fresh for me. So maybe that could be why.
Yeah. No, I get you. Like, even after watching it, a second viewing, I think it would just be better to explain it when we actually get into the actual movie. But again, before we get into spoilers, because I'm sure the general moviegoer or listener who hasn't seen the movie yet wants to know. Okay, how about we talk about the action from a broad strokes kind of point of view before we actually break into it, because if we're going to talk about the actual fighting, we're going to spoil some stuff. So I'd say that you're coming to a Mortal Kombat movie, that there's going to be violence, there's going to be it's martial arts obviously, but like the selling point for Mortal Kombat is the violence, right? And but if you played the games as well, everyone has like a gimmick, right? Or a special power.
There's special powers, and then also everybody has a fatality in which, or a special way in which they kill the losing character.
Right. So I feel like for this movie, they play that up pretty well. They know they understand the spirit of the games pretty well, and that we want to show off these fatalities, the gore, the violence, to an extent, and you want to show off these special abilities because everyone has a gimmick, right? Can shoot fireball, like a laser out of his eyes. Liu Kang.
Yeah, so that's one thing I wanted to ask you. How do you feel about the way that they give the characters superpowers? So just I mean, we're going to be making lots of comparisons, or at least maybe I will. In the original movie, they don't explain anything. They just have powers, and that's kind of it. You assume that some people have powers because they mention they're fighters from Outworld. So you can kind of just make that assumption. Okay, they're from another realm. They have powers, and that's it. Sometimes the Earth characters, the good guys do get powers in some moments, but it's, it's kind of grounded for the most part. So in this movie, everybody gets powers, but how do they get it, Will?
Well, if you happen to have a tattoo, just so happens to have one, then you can unlock your special ability if you get to level 55 or whatever.
Oh yeah, we didn't mention.
That's
we didn't
it.
mention that plot point of the tattoo.
Yeah, that is not at all connected. Well, that's something original for this film, right? And I think that's actually something I like.
It's kind of clever. Yeah, maybe we should just mention that if you have this kind of dragon tattoo on your body, it signifies that you are chosen to be a fighter for Mortal Kombat. And
right, and just like in Battle Royale rules, like anyone who gets taken out, like who has a tattoo, the person who defeated them will also be granted a tattoo, and they can unlock their powers. So I think this is like a double-edged sword, right? Because again, for an average moviegoer, they dispel the whole, everyone just has superpowers. They don't explain that shit thing, which is good. But at the same time, it also feels like a dumbing down. It also feels like we're also like oversimplifying it for the audience. Am I the only one who's got that vibe?
I think I'm okay with it because it does simplify the tournament in a way that how are these people chosen for the tournament? Because in the original in the first Mortal Kombat movie, it seemed like anybody can kind of just go. I can't recall if there was some sort of invitation. Like I don't think anyone was getting a flying shuriken to the face like in DOA, excuse me. But well, in this film, you had to have that special tattoo, which means you were kind of like a chosen one. So there isn't one chosen one.
Yeah.
There are multiple chosen ones to fight for whatever side.
Yeah. And if someone from Outworld defeats someone with Earth, from Earthrealm with the marking, then that's just 1 point for Outworld, right? That tattoo guy goes nowhere. So I understand the logic behind all this. Seems like it's very simple to grasp. The Arcana thing.
That's what I was getting to. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is not. I don't think this is not heavy spoilers at all. It'll be explained in the movie in due time when you're watching it. It explains that when you have the tattoo, you can unlock your special powers and you can use these moves that no mortal can. And I get it. I kind of wish they didn't over explain it, right? And actually it shows itself in a couple scenes too, where like a character will be explaining his backstory and how he got it, and it turns into a whole thing. And I'm like, I could kind of do without this, and I feel like I'd still get it. Like, yes, they get powers.
I wish they didn't use the word Arcana. It seems just like a placeholder for Chi, which is becoming kind of popular in some films and media to explain the superpowers of Asian people, which is really irritating to me. But what am I gonna do?
Well, just why use that special term? Just say powers. Like you can unlock your powers, and don't talk about
the tattoo.
Just
the tattoo already makes you special. So the fact that this person gets powers because of the tattoo, I can understand that. You don't have to go another step forward and break it down even more. Like, oh, actually, it's because in addition to the tattoo, you get this. Yeah, now that you have the tattoo, now your midichlorian level is like over 9,000, and now you can wield a freaking lightsaber. No, that's not. We don't need that.
Oh, that won't be the last time we're going to be referencing Star Wars in this episode. Did you read your terms and conditions when you got the tattoo? But that's the basic gist of it, and I think that the story is pretty simple. So, the point I was trying to make much earlier before was that you're coming to the movie knowing the violence, the special effects, those are the things you're in it for. So, because Mortal Kombat's a series that prides itself on those two, I feel like I should not have been surprised that the martial arts actually has to take a slight back seat to those, because it starts to kind of get overcrowded, right? It's like, okay, well, you want what makes Mortal Kombat special are those things. So the martial arts, I feel like, also kind of has to suffer as a result of that, because when you can. And this is not a blanket statement. This is but I do notice that if there's someone shooting fireballs and someone shooting ice out of their hands, the choreography is not going to be the thing that's going to draw your attention, right? You got to be focused on the CGI, and and sometimes the choreography will be dictated based off of their special abilities and doing things that are not realistic. Obviously, it's all fantastical. So yeah, sometimes you have to look at a fight scene and think, oh well, there's really nothing to break down here because that lady's just teleporting all over the place. That's not really fight choreography.
I can understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with that because the film knows how to use special effects in fight scenes in some aspects. I think the last fight does it pretty well because the last fight is mainly special effects, but it's also one of the biggest fight scenes. And I feel if you can do it good there, why can't it be the same in other places?
Yeah, that's true. Well, okay, again, it's not a blanket statement. Some fight scenes are worse than others. Some are better than others. I think that in the we'll have to go into exact specifics for that. But well, how about we both say that there are certain fights where there's less of the special effects, less of the the CGI, and yet the martial arts still also feels like it took a back seat because the editing.
Yeah.
The editing is not ideal.
It's fucking awful. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh God. I absolutely hated how a lot of these fights were edited together. And I don't like to hate so much on one aspect, but yeah, editing was really, really fucking horrible in this movie.
Wow, okay. You have stronger feelings than I do. I don't like it, for sure. I don't like the editing in this movie, but I don't hate it. But yes, you're absolutely right. It's not on the good side. The editing is just it's a mess sometimes. I don't. Okay, let's give credit where credit's due. So it's Mortal Kombat. When you have a movie that is featuring blood and gore and death and murder, up front, it runs the risk of being a NC-17 or movie. And in order to hit the R rating, they have to edit it down to appeal to a wider market. So I can assume that whatever editing pass that they went through, they just gutted certain things, for one reason or another. However, I still think that it's still over edited.
See, I don't kind of buy that because they do the fatalities in the movie. You see the very, very gory moves that they use to finish some of these characters off, and it's there. It's plain as day. You can see it. It's not blurred, and it's just right up in your face for the camera. So, I'm trying to think how would editing change that when we can clearly see it in the shot?
You know what I'm imagining it is. There are certain shots where I feel like the camera is just too close. It's too close, or it feels like some edits, they don't feel seamless. And I'll break into and talk more in detail when it comes to the first fight scene, for example. Certain edits happen, and I'm like, I don't know why they did that. That feels like either a continuity error, it feels like sloppy editing, or maybe they're doing it so they can mask like a longer fight sequence that might maybe had more like violence in it that they just could not keep in the final product. So I don't know, but you think
I was just gonna say I understand editing in that aspect. Maybe you have to chain together certain movements because you just have to make the fight quicker and you just lose like a big portion in the middle. That's fine. I get that. That happens all the time. But when you have 16 cuts in a fight scene for a character to do a very, very simple movement, that's unacceptable. We don't need to see a movement that viciously fast. It doesn't make sense to me. It's not like we're trying to cut together Liam Neeson, who is an older gentleman who can't climb a fence.
There is a shot later of Sub-Zero, like just doing a simple disarm, just disarming a weapon, and it's 4 cuts. It's like it should be 1 cut, nice and simple. Like I think we get it. And yeah, it feels like they don't have any. It feels like the editor didn't have any confidence in the performers, which clearly is not true. And I think generally speaking, that's as you know, as broad as it can be. Overall, the action is over edited. I wouldn't say it's awful, but it's not good. I feel like here's the thing. You know what this is like? This is like it's like reading a book, and you're reading the cliff notes of the action. You're not reading the book. You're like just reading like the summary. Like, oh, I know what's happening. I just can't make out the actual details. It's like, well, like if you read a sentence that says, and then he went to the store and he bought the thing. Well, like maybe there's like all those little details I want to know about. Like, did he pick up milk? Did he like all the little minutiae? Did he see his ex-girlfriend along the way? Like little tiny things. And that's kind of how I feel about this, the movie sometimes. The action's like, oh, I can tell that Sub-Zero's winning. and I'm like, did he bump into his ex-girlfriend along the way? Yeah, and that's as broad as can be without actually going into the film. So I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say before we go into spoilers and we actually dive into the technical?
Right. Yeah, I think because we're going to talk about the fights, it's really difficult to talk about the movie without spoiling it, because if we're going to talk about characters, stuff happens to them, and yeah, that's it. There's no way around it.
To fight for something known as Mortal Kombat.
Did you make that last part up? It just kind of sounds like you made it up. I mean, and look, they spelled it wrong.
Hey, you listen to me.
I think the reviews have been pretty kind to the movie, right? For as far as I can tell, and I can imagine.
I saw some pretty bad reviews, actually.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I guess depends on
But
who you're listening to.
Those are that's like Variety, and like those are like the I don't know. I don't want to say better reviewers because that's not
more
true.
critical eye. Yeah.
I wouldn't even say critical eye. I would just say the bigger names.
Okay.
Because I think people now know that just because Siskel and Ebert have an opinion doesn't necessarily mean your opinion aligns with theirs.
Sure. There's the audience score, and then there's like the critic score. And I can understand why critics wouldn't be a fan of this. Hell, generally speaking, they're very, very aggressive towards action movies. But hey, depending on what the popular opinion is from the user, the aggregate opinion of this movie, we may or may not get more sequels. I wouldn't be opposed to it if they just dialed down the editing. And man, that is the theme of tonight. The editing is not good at times.
Yeah, we generally complain about editing, but yeah, this movie, it's just like, if you really want to see what over editing looks like, this takes the cake.
Wait, does it? Is it the worst? It's not the worst. It can't be the worst. I feel like we've seen worse.
At times, it's the worst.
Yeah, at times. That's the distinction between this movie. This is a new release, right? So we're just covering it. But honestly, and if it weren't for the fact that it's a new release and you guys might want to hear our opinions on it, you might have passed on this movie, right? I might have passed on this movie. I'm like, there's fighting in it, but there's not, like, it's so overly edited, and I can't make out the action sometimes.
Oh, right.
That I might have been like, we could have skipped this one.
Right, yeah. People listening may not know. Sometimes we just don't do movies because we don't think it's, the fighting is good enough to talk about.
Yeah.
So
I think there's only like 2 fights in the movie that are just straight up martial arts fights. Yeah, like I count the one in the beginning with Sub-Zero versus Scorpion. It has some special effects, like very, very, scant amounts, but that's the closest we get to like just a hand-to-hand combat. Like, it's choreography first, and then the whole like theatrics second. And even then it's ruined because of the editing and the camera placement. But that's probably one of the ones I would actually recommend from this movie, fight-wise. But so that's all my complaints from a martial arts standpoint. I've echoed it so many times throughout the episode. You can hear it if you just press rewind. But I think the movie's entertaining, not super entertaining. It's not Mortal Kombat Annihilation levels of engaging. There are moments where this movie just feels kind of safe, which is so weird. This movie is like a very safe movie. This is a very by the numbers kind of action movie.
It's very weird hearing that, considering this is
Mortal Kombat.
performing fatalities on each other. And all that
I
fun stuff.
know, but as I was watching the movie, I'm like, I can immediately tell what the next story beat is. And it's weird to say that this movie plays it safe when it's a movie about people. Well, the source material is people ripping each other's hearts and heads off. Damn, we're missing like that one shot of Joe Taslim ripping someone's spine out of their bodies.
They're saving it for the next one.
Probably.
Yeah, I think Joe Taslim. I think he got signed on for 4 movies if they're allowed to make sequels.
Oh, maybe he plays the brother.
Yeah, it's gonna be a twin situation.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm the brother.
Sure.
Look, I have a scar. It's different.
Yeah. Look, I'm a fly into the scene horizontally, hooking on with my feet. All right. So yeah, that's my general take. Zero, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's actually kind of similar. As nitpicky and as annoyed as I was with this movie, I did enjoy watching it with you. And then even the second time, I mentioned earlier, fucking the guy who plays Kano, what's his name?
Josh Hart.
Josh Lawson. He definitely helps a lot because the one-liners and the jokes, like without those in between all the non-fighting, I think the movie could have been like just an absolute dredge to get through.
Right.
It could have been horrible. So thankfully, it's entertaining in that there's lots of jokes, and the movie's like poking fun of it at itself because he is poking fun at the silliness of everything.
Right.
Yeah, I like the fights with Joe Taslim and Hiroyuki Sanada. I thought they were pretty good. It seems like all the actors were capable. It seems like they did the choreography enough from what I could tell, but I just hated the editing in a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can watch. So they put the first 7 minutes online, so like you could just watch that first fight if you wanted to. You can't watch the last fight because I mean, you can go on HBO and just watch the last fight. That's weird. Right? I think.
Well, you'd say watch the last fight is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I did like that last fight because I thought it was a good combination of using the special effects and then actually having choreography in there.
Okay, all right. The choreography's fine in the last fight, but the special effects, there's too much of it, and I think the premise itself throws me off of the 2-on-1. So it's like it's a hard recommend for the last one. I probably only recommend it because there's like a fan servicey element to it, which is like, look, it's Scorpion versus Sub-Zero. Isn't that awesome? And look at the set piece. It's like all ice. But like when I break down the martial arts itself, it's like, it's all right. It's just all right. The first one's better for sure. When it's Sonata versus Taslim, and maybe even parts of when Sonata's fighting those ninjas. I don't know. And then the rest of the movie is just the rest of the movie. It's entertaining as a collective, but when you break down the parts, it's not as good. I think that's my way of describing it. Yeah, Mortal Kombat 2021. I don't know. It's just as I think I still recommend the first one over this.
I always liked the first one. I never had an issue with the first movie.
I don't even like the first movie that much, but this was the one we just watched is a much better film, but entertainment wise,
I would actually disagree with you there. I think the first one is a much better film than this one.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah. I like that movie. I think there's not anything too bad with it. I mean I can understand why people don't like it, but I think in terms of story, like I wasn't poking at all the plot holes in that movie like I was in this one for some. I don't know why. They just like all the questions stood out to me so much in this one for some reason.
Interesting. On that front, you and I differ. I think this is a better film, but action-wise, like actually, I like the original more. There's something nice about that simplicity. It's like, oh, it's not, let's just focus on the martial arts aspect of this, and then the rest will come. So yeah, that's Mortal Kombat. Man, I want Paul W.S. Anderson to come back and direct the sequel. And then Mila Jovovich will be in the movie, and she'll just hijack the fucking film, and it's just gonna be a fucking mess. I don't know. There's something about it, like the masochist in me that kind of wants that to happen.
Oh God, maybe she'll play Katana, one of the characters that wasn't in this movie, and maybe she'll crash through stained glass window on a motorcycle, with double Uzis firing in the air like she did in Resident Evil Apocalypse.
Doesn't the motorcycle explode in midair?
Probably.